The UConn's men's soccer team went up against Loyola Maryland for the first time in program history, and the Huskies took the game by a score of 5-1. The UConn football team took on conference rival UCF in the annual conflict, and both teams were looking for their second win in the AAC. The man who led UConn to 2 Big East titles made his return to Rensselaer Field tonight, as head coach Randy Edsall looks to lead the Huskies into their first season in the post-Bob Diaco era. The UConn's men's basketball team will look to extend their winning streak to 3 games as they take on conference rival, the Tulane Green Waves. The UConn football team dropped to last place in the AAC East after a devastating 41-3 loss at the hand of the ECU Pirates. UConn has not scored a touchdown in 6 straight quarters, but that wasn't an issue for the Pirates, who scored 5 touchdowns against the Huskies' defense. ECU's dynamic offense was too much for UConn, as running back James Summers, receivers Zay Jones, and quarterback Philip Nelson each threw for and caught a touchdown. The only silver lining for the Huskies in this game was receiver Noel Thomas, who notched his 6th straight game with over 100 receiving yards and eclipsed the 1,000 receiving yard mark in this game. Head coach Bob Diaco does not fault his players and expressed his disbelief on the disappointing 3-6 season.
I'm not going to stand here and blame the players. I don't do that. So it's on me. I got to get it fixed. I'm going to get it fixed. We're going to get better.
After throwing for only 180 yards and 2 interceptions, Diaco pulled quarterback Brian Sheriffs late in the game for Garrett Anderson, but he still stands behind his starter.
I'm not going to make any proclamation right now about Sheriffs. I fully expect them to start the next game. I know what we have in the bullpen, and like I said, I'm not going to burn Donovan Williams' red shirt with 3 weeks to play in a season that's been spectacularly depressing.
The Huskies have a short week as they return home and look to rebound in another conference game against the Temple Owls this Friday at 7 p.m. From the Boneyard at ECU, I'm Brandon Martinez, and this is UC Sports. A feat 2.5 years in the making and never before accomplished in basketball history, the UConn women's team have reached 100 straight wins with their 66-55 victory over the 6th-ranked South Carolina Gamecocks. In the first 20 minutes of play, UConn and South Carolina kept the game close in a physical battle. Gamecock star Asia Wilson scored early and often, hitting 5 of 18 for 12 points to keep South Carolina within reach, and even taking the lead by 3. For UConn, it was all Gabby Williams and Nafisa Collier, combining for 29 of the team's 35 points and 14 rebounds. The Huskies were up 6 points heading into the second half, but fell into a slump, failing to find the bottom of the net on 5 straight possessions. Luckily, their defense kept the lead secure, limiting Asia Wilson to just 5 points in the second half. With Katie Lou Samuelson holding down the defense, Gabby Williams took charge of the offense. Williams had a career game against South Carolina, finishing the game with 26 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals. Head coach Gino Auriemma praises his players for reaching such a milestone in sports history.
They carried the torch across the finish line, so to speak, to 100. It was a relay. They took the last baton and they crossed the finish line. If we win a national championship, it's all theirs, start to finish. They earned it.
Huskies aren't done rewriting the history books just yet, as they look to push their winning streak over 100 this Saturday at Tulane. From the basketball capital of the world, I'm Brandon Martinez, and this is UC Sports. The UConn Huskies ended their season on a low note, as they dropped their 6th straight game to the Tulane Green Waves by a score of 38-13. UConn hoped to honor their seniors with the win on Senior Day, but poor offensive play halted the Huskies. Freshman Donovan Williams could not guide the offense to the end zone in the first half of the game, extending UConn's touchdown drought to 16 quarters. The streak came to an end in the third quarter when Arkeel Newsom scored on a 62-yard run and tacked out another touchdown through the air. Newsom was the only bright spot for the Huskies, ending the night with 198 all-purpose yards. Despite Newsom's play, the Huskies had a long road ahead of them. The defense allowed 24 unanswered points in the first half and would allow another 14 in the fourth quarter. Head coach Bob Diaco is ready to close the book on this season and is already preparing for next season.
Expectations were spectacularly high, and obviously performance and production was spectacularly low. The minute I step away from this podium, I'm going to get started on 17. And just as I and the team turned it into a bowl team in year 2, we're going to get back to it.
The Huskies ended their disappointing season with a 3-9 record. The Huskies will look to rebuild from this season and get back to being a bowl-eligible team in 2017. From Pratt & Whitney Stadium at Renster Field, I'm Brandon Martinez, and this is UC Sports. Welcome back to UC Sports, where we now transition to the pitch, where the UConn men's soccer team squared off against Loyola, Maryland. This is the first time these two programs have gone up against each other, and it was a barn burner. UConn started things off with a goal by Alex Sanchez 16 minutes into the match. Loyola shakes off the early goal by scoring one of their own 10 minutes later, tying the game at 1. The Huskies would end the half with a goal by Abdou Baki Jam. Coming out of halftime, the Huskies lead by 1. 48 seconds into the half, Andrew Garris scores. 3 minutes later, Jake Nowinski scores a goal of his own and increasing the Huskies' lead 4-1. Baki Jam would pour it on with his second goal of the night, giving him 4 goals on the year. The Huskies handled Loyola in their first meeting and finished the game by a score of 5-1.